Welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and once again, I'm going to be talking about wincons because, man, I hear a lot of comments on wincons, specifically in regards to my decks because I tend to not really concern myself with wincons when I make decks. I heard it again most recently, and I did actually cover this in a video, but I'm going to be covering it again because I think it's a pretty important topic that maybe people focus too much on. I've just always thought it was a weird topic to discuss in the Commander format. What is the wincon for your deck, right? I've been hearing it since the beginnings of my channel, people commenting on my deck text, what's the wincon? What's the wincon? And in particular, when I made my video recently talking about white and how good it's gotten in the format, I heard a few comments on that video talking about, well, how does white win games, which I think is pretty funny. It wins the game however your deck wins the game. And as I've been saying, I already made a wincon video where I talked about how, I talked about a bunch of things. I talked about how your opponent's wincon can also be your wincon, because whatever that, like the aristocrat's deck is draining everyone's life, so it's helping you win as well because your other opponent's life is lowering, right? 90% of decks, or probably even more than 90% of decks, are essentially going after your opponent's life total. I would say most of those are combat. I think most decks in the Commander format win by combat, which is the traditional way to win in any format, in any game of Magic since the beginning of the history of this game. And even if you are going after your opponent's life total in other ways, combat's going to help because you are reducing your opponent's life total to zero. I thought, other than just throwing out my opinion, let's get some actual facts behind this, sort of, by looking at the most popular commanders in the format. So first up is Atraxa Praetor's Voice, most popular commander in the format. And this one, funny enough, is kind of the exception to the rule here a little bit because obviously there's just so many ways to build an Atraxa deck. And funny enough, I would say it's probably one of the commanders out there where combat damage is not the main win con, and or just reducing your opponent's life total is not the main win con. I would say Infect +1/+1 counters and Super Friends are the three main ways I've seen an Atraxa deck built. So of course, if you're doing the Infect option, you're winning by Infect, obviously. Although I will say a lot of Infect decks are also doing the combat damage thing. You're just, instead of draining life, you're getting your opponent's 10 poison counters. But because of the proliferate, you don't have to attack so much. So there's a few alt wincon ways to build an Atraxa deck. Super Friends decks, typically, how do they win? I guess there's probably a lot of different ways, but Atraxa certainly is sort of the exception to the rule here a little bit. Next up is the Dragon. How are you winning in your Dragon Tribal deck? You're winning with combat damage, pretty much guaranteed. I guess like a Terror of the Peaks effect would be the only exception there, but there's a little bit of throw damage around. But again, you're reducing your opponent's life total to zero. If I am constantly attacking my opponents, that means when I get my Terror of the Peaks out, I'm going to have to throw less damage around in order to kill them, right? Again, that's why it all plays into itself. So what's the wincon in your Dragon deck? Reducing your opponent's life total to zero, mostly, I would say, through combat damage. Next up, we got Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow. And again, this one's a little bit of an exception, but not entirely, right? Because, of course, when your commander deals combat damage to a player, reveal top card of your library, put that card in your hand, each opponent loses life equal to the card's mana value. So, of course, that's your win con. Again, this is another one where, and when people say, oh, what's the win con? If your win con stapled on your commander, then you don't have to figure it out. It makes things a lot easier. And obviously this commander, funny enough, was supposed to be a ninjutsu or ninja tribal commander originally when it came out. And people realized very quickly that that first ability is so ridiculously powerful and it's so easy to close out games with it that not only do you not really need to be doing anything else, that you don't even really need any other ninjas in your deck because of course your commander having commander ninjutsu makes it so that you don't even need to have any other ninjas in the deck, and also you can cheat your commander tax. It's really a ridiculous, in my opinion, one of the worst designed commanders ever because it was meant to be a Ninja Tribal commander, and it's not really at all, in my opinion. And obviously being the third most popular commander in the entire format and a commander that even gets played in CEDH, I think says a lot. Now, I will just say, even though your win con is stapled on your commander, again, you're just reducing your opponent's life total to zero, which anything helps. right? Again, if I'm playing my Eureka deck and somebody else has a Spellslinger deck with their Gutter Snipe out, okay, you're going after my other opponent's life total as well. Great. You're helping me win because I'm just trying to reduce my opponent's life total to 0. And even the 1 damage that you're getting in for with your commander is helping. There's a certain number. Typically it's 40. You're trying to reduce that to 0. Anything helps. My opponent's Gutter Snipe helps. My other opponent's Psychosis Crawler will help, and my commander actually getting in for 1 damage will actually help. That's part of the win con, right? Next up, we got Lathril Blade of Elves. Again, you have another commander that sort of has the win con stapled on it a little bit with this tap 10 untapped elves. Each opponent loses 10 life and you gain 10 life. Although I will argue, from the Lathril decks that I've seen, they're just elf tribal. That's it. They're just doing elf tribal decks. I rarely see that ability actually ever get used because, of course, having 10 elves in play is kind of tough. Funny enough, the last game I saw where this was played, the guy actually had 10 elves, but his commander got killed. And when he played it, had summoning sickness, so he couldn't use the ability right away. And he just ended up killing everyone. How? With combat damage, of course, like most tribal decks. And again, tribes are by far, as we get through these commanders, the most common commander deck you're going to see all around. How does most tribes win? Almost every tribe wins by combat damage. Almost every single one. Speaking of which, next up we got Miram. And Miram, again, Dragon Tribal. And again, we can get into the Terror of the Peak situation, which everyone's terrified of, which actually throws direct damage around. But I don't think anyone has ever won a game with their Miram deck. Even if they get the Terror of the Peaks out and everything's going exactly as they planned, have you ever won without getting in for combat damage? No, it's helping you. Even if you're planning on doing the Terror of the Peaks thing, the combat damage is going to be a huge part of that as well. Your commander's a 6/6 flyer. Why wouldn't you attack with it and reduce your opponent's life total with that, right? So it's all playing into the scenario. So essentially, again, another commander that I would say wins primarily by combat damage. Next, we got Kenrith, and this one, I don't even think we can talk. Again, this is even worse than Atraxaware. Another reason why it's so popular, it's just so open-ended. I couldn't possibly guess what you're doing in your deck. Are you winning by combat damage? Let me know. Next up, Krenko Mob Boss. I mean, how are we winning in this deck again? When the people said on that video, how does white win commander games? I don't know. How does mono red win commander games? Almost always mono red decks that I see are winning by combat damage, but also you can win with direct damage as well. My Browlin deck, I'll throw that out there. It is obviously, I mean, again, there's a deck where my win con is essentially stapled on my commander, but the 20 times I've played that deck or whatever, not a single game have I only won with my commander's ability. I also attack with my creatures because having to discard that many cards to deal 40 damage to all my opponents is really difficult. So of course, I'm also going to attack. Any chance I get, I'm going to be getting in for 2, 3, 4 damage, whatever I can, because it's reducing my opponent's life total. And it's going to assist in helping with my commander close out the game. Krenko, I would imagine, again, another commander where you are likely mostly winning by combat damage. Although, again, there are other ways. Maybe you got impact tremors. I mean, likely you have an impact tremors on there. That's just, again, going after your opponent's life total, reducing it. But are you just not going to attack? Of course you're going to attack. Even if you're planning on winning with impact tremors, Perforos, throwing direct damage around by, sacrificing your goblins, whatever, you're still going to attack because attacking reduces your opponent's life total. So I would imagine, again, Krenko primarily is winning by combat damage. Joe to the Unifier, another commander that, I guess combat damage, right? How are you winning with your Joe to the Unifier deck? You guys can let me know in the comments below. It's legendary tribal. So are you not just winning with combat damage? Likely you are. I mean, are people looking at Joe to the Unifier? Someone sits down at a table. Again, this is the part that confuses me. Someone sits down with your Joe to the Unifier deck. Are you going, how are you winning with that deck? What's your win con? No, nobody says that. Everyone just says, hey, that's a really powerful commander. Better watch out for that, right? Likely they're winning with combat damage by just attacking with their, Avacyn or something? Edgar Markov. That one's pretty self-explanatory. And in fact, this was a commander that people were talking about wanting to get banned when it first came out because it was so good at winning by combat damage. Ishin Two Heavens is one. Again, attack triggers. I imagine you're winning by combat damage there. Will Help the Rod Cleaver. Here we go with the tribal commander. How does anyone win in their zombie deck? I mean, it's possible that you have other ways of winning, but likely you're just winning by combat damage. Kalia the Vast. This is one where I would say, again, the primary way you win with this deck is combat damage, but you can do the, Master of Cruelties, aha! But Master of Cruelties only works on one player, and how are you killing everyone else? Likely you're just doing it by putting giant demons, dragons, and angels into play and reducing people's life total to 0. Combat damage commander. Gishath's son's avatar. Combat damage commander. Do people look at Gishath and go, what's your win con? Combat damage. Combat damage is the main way that most decks win. Sauron the Dark Lord coming in next. This is the 14th most popular commander in the format, by the way. That's kind of surprising. How are you guys winning with this deck? I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say that you are amassing orcs and attacking with those. Maybe you're doing some army tribal here, stuff like that. Likely you're winning with combat damage. If you're not, let me know if you're winning in a different way in the comments below. Shorkai Genesis Engine is an interesting one, and this is another one that it would be hard to guess exactly what people are doing with all of these decks. Are people crewing their commander and attacking with it? It is an 8/8. That's possible, although crew 8 is tough. Funny enough, this is one of those commanders that I can't believe how popular it is. It's good card advantage, the draw and the discard. How are you winning with this deck, guys? Are you doing the Psychosis Crawler thing, maybe? Do people ask, what's the win con in your Shorkai deck? It's kind of funny because, again, just like Kenrith and some of these commanders where the way you win is not obvious, people aren't worried about your win con because they just assume you have a powerful deck, right? So how are you winning with your Shorkai deck? Asika, God of the Tree, and I'm happy to see that Asika is now the 16th most popular commander in the entire format. Way back when Kaldheim first came out, I was like, this commander is ridiculous. It's just a 5-color commander that cheats stuff into play. Obviously, people are playing the backside, right? Prismatic Bridge. And I was like, man, this is going to be the most popular commander from this set. Eventually, which it is, and eventually it will be one of the most popular commanders in the entire format, which of course it is. I mean, you're cheating giant stuff into play. So again, just like Joda, it is just, a 5-color deck where I put big scary stuff into play. I would imagine, maybe people are doing planeswalkers here, but I imagine it's just I cheat giant creatures into play, probably. And so again, how are you winning outside of combat damage? Maybe you have a way, but likely you're winning with combat damage. Necrosar the Mindraiser. There is a commander, and I think maybe the first one, although I guess Yuriko could also be considered in that discussion. Again, Yuriko is a commander where even though you're not necessarily with the combat damage, you definitely want to be attacking all the time. Necrosar would be the first commander here, I think, that we've seen, though, that is definitely dedicated to winning without needing combat damage, although obviously because you're going after your opponent's life total, any attacking will help. It is certainly possible, and I've definitely played against Necrosar decks where no attacking is necessary at all. They don't do any attacking. So I think the first commander we've seen where that doesn't need to be happening. Arcades the Strategist. I mean, each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness. Gee, I wonder how we're winning there, right? It literally says combat damage on your commander. Animar, Soul of Elements. I don't know if there's people out there, like people who do the Shrieking Drake thing, but usually that's just to make your commander bigger. What else is there? Every Animar deck I've ever seen is winning through combat damage, either with your commander. Your commander gets huge and you kill people with it, or you're just doing good stuff creatures and you attack with your creatures. So you had a Font of Hope. Another commander, I'm shocked how popular it is. A mono white commander is the 20th most popular commander in the format. Man, people must really like Angel Tribal. Again, we're doing Angel Tribal here. How are you winning? Combat damage, right? By the way, here's a white deck. How does this white deck win? It wins through combat damage, obviously. I'll stop there, right? I think you get the point. Whenever I hear these, what's the win con, comments on my videos or in different discussions, I'm just thinking, I don't get, like most commander games I play just go win through combat damage or a combination of different ways that go after people's life totals. The most popular commanders in the entire format, most of them are just winning through combat damage. Any tribal commander is almost always just winning through combat damage. I think the people commenting on my videos are just, they're CEDH players, or they're so used to just, whatever their pod is, they're so used to I combo off and win. So when they say, what's your win con? Maybe what they mean is, I don't see a combo in this deck. Where's the infinite combo? Maybe that's what they mean by that is, where's the Kiki Jiki Deceiver Exarch in here? I don't see one. You're missing a Thassa's Oracle in your deck list or a Labman in your deck list. So how am I supposed to win? I don't know. 90% of casual commander games, I think, are decided through combat damage. That's my opinion anyway. You guys let me know what you think in the comments below. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.